is not an official diagnosis, and it's not in DSM-5. This is not pathology. This is a loving response. Nobody uses substance over a person. This is not a conscious choice. This is an addiction. We're not using those terms, by the way. But today, and if you didn't know, I graduated as a psychologist. Well, in Russia, to be a psychologist, you have to have a master's degree. I have a master's degree in psychology. I worked as a therapist before. I ran private practice. And when I was in school, the term codependence was pretty much used. My therapist used it. And now, as of today, affected family members, because it's what it is, affected family members. I'm going to give a big self-disclosure, if it helps. I grew up with family members who had problematic substance use, specifically alcohol, problematic drinking. My mom had a partner who drank quite heavily. He had alcohol use disorder heavily. My mom, she is a military officer. My life partners, problematic drinking or problematic substance use in one way or another. With that said, I'm going to tell you that I get it. I get what you're going through from my personal experience, and also more from the peer support perspective, because I have lived experience, something that I even see in my clients. This is me, and this is what I see in my clients, and this is how I support my clients as well. If you're a gay man and you live with someone who lives with addiction, who uses substances, and it affects you, this video is specifically for you, because we're going to talk about codependency, and I'm going to start with a disclaimer. It is not an official diagnosis, and it's not in DSM-5. That term is highly criticized, and I explain to you why. But the point of this video is not codependency. It's not to tell you that you're codependent or not. It's really help you to put words, what's going on in family dynamic in the relationship, because substances, problematic use of substances affect loved ones, affect you. And if you're someone who notices that your use of substances harms and affects others, this video is for you. This video, though, the point of this video is not to shame somebody who is using substances, because addiction is a disease. If it is an addiction and problematic use of substances, one thing that I know for a fact, shaming and forcing your way never works really well in those situations. Address the codependency thing first. The first term went on the surface at 1930. And then as the field of addiction and before it was chemical dependency was there, people noticed, people in 1936, in late 1930 to 1950, people were noticing that it affects people severely. In 1970, the term co-alcoholic or para-alcoholic appeared in the literature. Now, when somebody uses substances with an adult who is using substances, right? We become this parentified child. We realize that we have to take responsibility for our lives. We have to manage and regulate ourselves. We have to make ourselves safe, early enough. When we were supposed to be cared for, we had to become parents. Sometimes we had to care for an adult who was intoxicated. Is it not the truth? Or just seeing an adult like a person who is supposed to provide safety, who is supposed to provide love, who is supposed to be your rock. Now you see them vulnerable, intoxicated, and not being able to care for themselves or for you, even if it is just for the night. And that doesn't go away really smoothly. And when your loved one is intoxicated or has problematic drinking or has problematic use disorder or has substance use in general, those triggers become activated or you start developing those triggers. All of a sudden, you feel that you have to be in control. All of a sudden, you feel the responsibility that nobody gave to you. Yes, he is your partner. He is your loved one. To love him and care for him and feel for him and make sure that he is safe. But the burden that comes with substance use, nobody ever, it was not an agreement. You know what? I want to be a chronic drinker. I want to drink heavily, and you got to make sure that I am safe. It's always never the case. Also, alcohol behavior affects different people differently. And my experience, a lot of my partners were affected by alcohol very negatively. Very negatively. Either they were combative, that can happen. They were combative, or they were not safe. They put themselves in a dangerous situation. They were not safe. And I felt like it was my responsibility to keep them safe. And yes, not safe. I do feel responsible. And it's quite okay to feel responsible. It is quite okay to get them to safety. But again, people behave differently under influence, right? They might try to go out or go somewhere or drive. And if it is a night, the worst thing that I can imagine for me personally, and is when I live with a person who drank a little bit too much and they're trying to drive, they're trying to go somewhere, they're trying to do something. I can't just go to bed because, again, I am a responsible person, and that affects relationship. And even if people don't have problematic behavior when they use, if it becomes a problem, if it becomes truly an addiction and disease, later on it affects relationship, it affects intimacy, it affects your sex life, it affects your communication, and affects all of your life altogether. People break up over that. And this is one caveat to take away from this video. And I understand that this video is not but I want you to walk away with something practical. Number one, understanding healthy detachment is essential because it's not about abandoning them. And it's not about negotiating with them. It's not about saying, hey, it's either me or substance, because nobody ever uses substance over a person. It is a disease. It is an addiction. I'm going to say it again. Nobody uses substance over a person. This is not a conscious choice. This is an addiction. But it doesn't mean that you should put up with harmful behavior, and it doesn't mean that your boundaries should be violated. And it doesn't mean that. What does it mean for you is to understand you're willing to care for them. And for you is to be there for them, to make sure that they're safe in the capacity that you can provide safety. non-judgmental, unconditional positive regard. This is something that we call it in therapy, meaning you see a person like who they are, not like what, not the addicted, not the intoxicated part. The intoxicated part, this is something that you have to manage. But under that intoxicated part, you should see a true person. You should see a real person behind the behavior. But it's also okay to disengage. It's also okay to say, you know what, I'm not gonna give you resources for substances. I'm not okay with you drinking tonight. Or I'm not okay with you do X, Y, and Z. And it's okay to communicate your boundaries. If the next day, have a conversation, and also at some point, if it becomes too much, it's okay to disengage. It's okay to leave when it becomes too much, if a person is not making efforts for treatment. I know it's a difficult decision. I'm not telling you to leave anybody. This is leave them if they harm you. But also understanding that, like, if physical violence is present, if a person is physically violent towards you, seek safety. And at that point, you talk to professional and seek help from mental health professionals. Get yourself to safety. And we're talking about domestic violence when substances are present. Get yourself to safety. That's nobody deserves to settle and experience violence because of someone's disease. That's something that I want to communicate. But if, let's say, the violence is not the issue, your person is not violent, healthy detachment to understand that you can make them recover, you can't make them sober. They can only do that and support on their sobriety journey. Important caveat: when your person decides to go sober, it also the change for your family dynamic. Because in our culture, in gay culture, gay club is a safe place for us. And what we do at a gay club, we drink. A lot of queer places, alcohol is just given to us. And it's so normalized. When your person is in recovery, it might mean that either they will not go with you to certain places that you used to go, and this is the conversation that you should have. And it's important to understand their trigger points. Some people might be okay with you drinking. They will not drink. Some people may get triggered when you drink or when people drink around them at some point in their recovery. And maybe it is the way to avoid that. Example: my husband decided to abstain from alcohol because it's his choice. Sober living. Or like how he sometimes say, hey, like, this is my fast. I don't want to drink anymore. Now, what it means that our dynamic had to change. It means that I go sometimes to places where we used to go to places, and he rather do something else. Now, for me, it was not an issue. It's just like, okay, it's just an adaptation. And later on, because we were talking about how co-using, when you use with somebody else, when somebody else has problematic usage of alcohol or other substances, you use with them. It might affect them negatively, and you may not see the effect as much as they do. So, but now I'm slowly losing interest in going places where we used to go, because now when I'm not going out as much, my relationship with alcohol, and I never had a problematic drinking problem personally, and probably because of my history, how I was abused emotionally because of people in my life, my family member, multiple family members were drinking, and it affected me in the worst possible way. This is why I chose not to drink. But also, like, after that, I realized that alcohol just not doing it for me anymore. With that said, the opposite is also possible. Families do break up because one person goes sober and it breaks their dynamic. It's just boring for the other person. It's just like, okay, but why it's always about you drinking? This is how you affected by that behavior personally. So we call it affected family members. Affected family members. Not codependent, not clinging, not controlling. You simply affected by someone else's problematic use or someone else's addiction. Number 2, healthy detachment. Healthy detachment. Not abandoning your person, but also understanding when your choices and their choices separate. When your autonomy begins, your efficacy begins, and their ends. Understanding that you can hold boundaries without abandoning them. Understanding that you can communicate and ask for certain things of your partner, even if it is hard. And also understand that they may or may not meet your requests or criteria or need or want as you ask them to, because it is a part of an addiction. Present at any point, please seek safety. Please seek support, safety. It is a disease, but also because they drink too much, because they use too much, because they smoke too much, it's important to address that. Recovery is possible. Recovery will affect your family system. Recovery will affect your dynamic. Especially in gay world, when we go out drinking, when like alcohol is heavily present and most importantly, that help is available. Seek professional help. Something that I do in my practice. I started my process to get my addiction counselor certification credential with the state of Washington. I'm not accepting patients or clients for addiction treatment specifically, but what I can do, I can do sober coaching with a understanding that you are receiving addiction treatment. If you experience substance use disorder, something that you can do, I can support family members of loved ones who are going through recovery. Like as a hypnotherapist, hypnotherapy has a lot of hypnotherapy. Well, first of all, I use clinical hypnotherapy. It's not a trick. It's not like making you feel weird or anything like that. I use evidence-based and clinically trained, classically trained, and use evidence-based mindfulness clinical hypnotherapy in my practice, and I modify each session with evidence-based practices for each client. So this is something that I can help start talking about and doing more like sessions about sober curiosity, because recovery, like not every problematic use disorder means that somebody is addicted. Just because your husband or you go party every weekend and you kind of you kind of get too much. It doesn't automatically mean that you are addicted or that you have alcohol use disorder. And sober curiosity, this is something that I am extremely passionate about. And this is really good fit for people who may not want to necessarily abandon alcohol, but curious about sobriety or curious about getting in the norm. And next time, we are going to talk about alcohol specifically. We're going to, in the next video, we're going to talk about what is acceptable norm of alcohol. You will be surprised. Listen, I was surprised. Like, you said, what? You will be surprised. And it's going to be really good. And we're going to start about sober curiosity when it comes to alcohol specifically in the next video. This is something that I'm going to start introducing on my channel, in my community. And if you need support, if you need personalized clinical hypnotherapy, I'm a registered hypnotherapist for the state of Washington. I can see people across the United States, except for few exceptions. Send me a message, book 15-minute consultation call, see if it is a good fit for you, and we'll tell you if it is or if it isn't, or if you need something else. And stay tuned. And thank you so much for hanging out with me.